maybe early tomorrow, right? We already have the declaration. I should tell you that for Russia, it's very important to, we as a presidency, we think it's very important to communicate with different formats, right? And clearly communicating with the young part of the globe is very important for forming future policy, because at the end of the day, it will be the young people who will benefit from the results of it, or to some extent will actually implement this policy if they're really aimed at the long run. Russia, thank you for participation. I think it's a great job. Let's do the following. I'm actually eager to give the floor to the other guys to listen to your declaration. I think that you know already the priorities of Russia and all this stuff, so I don't need to repeat this. So let me give the floor to your representatives, and then we will discuss these recommendations and what can be done with them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ksenia. So I would like to ask Mr. Inal Ardenbach, who is the head of the Russian delegation, to
Yudaeva, which is an outstanding Russian intellectual specialist in many financial areas. Fellow delegates, I'd like to first of all congratulate you with the final communique. Can I hear some applauses? It was very hard for us, for delegation leaders, but it was very interesting for us. A great experience. So, as you know, our final document is considered to be divided into two main parts, as you know. The first part is international financial architecture reform, and the second part is sustainable development. I would like to present our suggestions on the subtopic first of international financial architecture reform, which is finding a new design for international financial organizations. So, as you know, around the globe, many professors, consultants, experts, politicians tend to outline the fact that currently we are facing many challenges in the area of global finances. So, within our final document, we outlined how to tackle with these challenges according to our point of view. So, the first substantial suggestion I would like to outline. We recognize the process of the redistribution of economic forces in the world. So we outline the necessity to harmonize economic power of the country and the influence of the country and the influence of the country of the global decision-making, global financial decision-making within leading international financial organizations like the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. So in this context, we suggested to increase the weight of gross domestic product in the existing IMF quota, which is a very important point to promote, financial multipolarity and to have more reliable, more stable global financial system. Also, we proposed regular redistribution of quota on the basis of permanently changing macroeconomic figures. I was proposing to have a word automatic redistribution, but it was vetoed. So we have regular redistribution. Also, we outlined the importance to implement finally 2010 IMF reform package in order to increase the credibility of the International Monetary Fund. Also, we outlined a very important idea to avoid regional and national preferences in choosing IMF and World Bank management. It was very disputable question. So distinguished friends, fellow delegates, I would like to present some suggestions on social policy optimization, which is a very important point for my country and for all G20 nations as well. I would say a few words about the most important things. We outlined the necessity to promote primary and secondary education for sustainable development. I mean, three main domains of the sustainable development. First of all, socio-economic sustainability, environmental sustainability, and economic sustainability. We suggested to form a unified G20 countries job database for youth. This is very important for us, for young people. And also I would like to outline the suggestion to implement basic financial education courses in schools, and also we recommended to form financial departments formed by financial corporations on the base of leading universities of G20 nations. Well, this is all, and I would like to say finally that our recommendations will be useful for G20 leaders, for G20 Sherpas. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I know that it's actually quite slowly going, so when I listened to you, I thought that probably next time we need to organize negotiations among young 20 on the actual quota formula for you to experience how difficult it is to negotiate these things. Anyway, but this is a good recommendation, and clearly we will try to do as much as possible to implement that. I think that you have a number of good suggestions on employment as well. Well, you have this recommendation to establish a unified G20 country job vacancies database for youth and promote youth mobility. I personally fully support this. We will see, I promise I will put it on the table in the employment group, see what the reaction will be. I think that it may require some time to go, but on the other hand, having a more integrated labor markets in the future may be not a bad idea. At the same time, implementing basic financial education and entrepreneurship in schools. This is the recommendation which is at least partially being implemented. We started this experience in Russia. No, it's a part of also development policy, right? Having mostly financial education, not so much entrepreneurship courses. I think that having entrepreneurship courses is also very important. In the last 10 years, it was recognized globally, particularly in some, maybe not in school, but in schools, but in some universities, they now have entrepreneurship courses, and it seems to be very good in terms of really establishing the culture of entrepreneurs among the students. I think that, and this is an interesting recommendation to look at it as well. So thank you very much. And I should say that what I like about this is that you really can smell the spirit of young people in your recommendations, right? So it's not the same stuff which everybody says. There is specific, and I think that it's very important that we have the influence of this new mentality in these recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ksenia. And then
the Mexican delegation would first like to thank the Russian Sherpa and the Russian presidency for hosting Y20. As you all know, Mexico hosted last year Y20 for the first time as part of the official agenda within the G20 meeting. So we are honored to be here. It has been an excellent venue, and well, we also applaud the excellent agenda setting that the Russian presidency has established by involving all topics behind the guiding theme, which is growth. And well, for the specific agreements that we have all unanimously decided upon yesterday, I'm going to briefly talk about the ones we highlighted regarding about financial regulation. Well, the first one, we proposed a tax on financial flows that are oriented towards tax havens. We encourage the fight against the use and the exploitation that is sometimes takes place in these tax havens. And for this regard, we are encouraging a greater information exchange between G20 members in order to avoid this situation. To do it, we are also hoping that the G20 builds upon the experience led by the Financial Action Task Force that belongs to the OECD in order to build upon these efforts. And well, in a topic that we also addressed and that is very close to the situation that we face in Mexico, we also made up a statement against money laundering and about the importance of fighting money laundering. And well, in the communique, there's a specific proposal for the establishment of a protocol against this situation. It's a great coincidence, I think, that the G8 leaders meeting 2 days ago, agreed on specific steps regarding tax havens. So I am hopeful that with this we can see that youth sometimes does coincide, and we can work together with global leaders. And well, lastly, I'm going to briefly mention the topics that we agreed upon regarding food security. And basically, we tried to build upon the food banks that exist, or if they don't, we are encouraging their creation in order to ensure availability in a national and in a regional level. We are also hoping that insurance mechanisms may be developed in order to mitigate financial losses by those producers who face drought or similar emergency conditions. And well, we are also trying to sponsor that G20 members pronounce themselves in favor of ensuring a supply of clean drinking water for all. These are just some overall ideas of what we were able to discuss. These are part of the Sustainable Development Agenda, and well, I'll leave it here for the sake of time. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Luis. Exactly these topics, right? When I met him in Davos, he told me that he's supporting this anti-offshores and tax evasion idea. This is one of his priorities. And also food security was always a priority of Mexico. So it's very interesting, and you know that G20 is working very hard on this, headed by the OSCE, and I hope that we will be able to produce something very practical by the time of the summit. As far as clean drinking water is concerned, this is one of an important issue for development agenda. So I also think that we should take care of this in the official agenda, in the official development agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please.
Thank you, Roman. Hello, delegates, and welcome to this year's Russian Sherpa. It's an honour for the Australian delegation to be here. As you all know, we will be hosting next year, and there's a lot that we have learned already from this invaluable experience. We've had great discussions over the past 2 days, and we look forward to your valuable feedback. So on the topic of international financial architecture reform, I'd just like to briefly elaborate on the topic of reforming international capital markets. So the definition of this topic led the initial discussions. So there was a lot of recommendations which were provided about providing mechanisms for controlling and enabling different mechanisms to open up the international capital markets and promote trade. So first of all, regarding derivatives, we proposed that G20 nations implement a mark-to-market valuation of underlying assets on a daily basis. Now this provides a clear indication of how the markets are performing, and it really opens up to international scrutiny. So for the purpose of further international PPPs, financing development, we recommended that establishing a network that focuses on infrastructure between existing development banks. So basically we proposed that providing mechanisms for direct debiting of PPP projects and use of the earn-out scheme and the put-call rights mechanism. But an interesting point which was raised, which we think is a valuable contribution from the youth here, was the idea of proposing a centralized, comprehensive and open online PPP database. Now this has the goal of providing transparency of the markets. This is going to be a voluntary initiative from the G20 members. Now this is not open government affiliated directly, but we know that the Russian government is interested in moving towards an open government on their own terms. So for Russia in particular, this means that they'll be able to enable a lot of control, disclosure, and they'll be able to provide technocratic mechanisms for the release of discretionary data. For other nations, this might mean full payment mechanism disclosures, an indication of the public sector price and the pre-development risk mitigation between the public and private sectors. So moving on to sustainable development, one of the topics which we looked at was energy efficiency. Under energy efficiency, the first point we'd like to make is that we reaffirm that meeting the targets of the Kyoto Protocol are of the utmost importance for G20 nations. Now, we're well on track to meeting those, the future targets, but we do reaffirm that this is a priority. We recommend that the G20 nations implement a progressive tax on carbon emissions, and this money, which is raised in revenues, which is determined on a national level, so there'll be differences between the nations, can go towards financing other decarbonisation, research and development projects, education initiatives, and different financing methods, which is important to energy efficiency. Now, for this to happen, we need to have a centralised body. One such exists, the Green Climate Fund, and it makes sense for us to be affiliated with such an organisation. It would be redundant to set up our own one now. This organisation is fairly new, so finances which go towards this, we would like to have a say over how they are used. We think that is very important. Energy efficiency was actually extensively covered. There was a very well-researched topic, and there was a lot of great recommendations that came out. But we made a basic statement to encourage public sector to support the development of sustainable projects through public procurement and catalytic projects. Basically, we recommend that G20 leaders promote energy efficiency as a key priority. Welcome your feedback. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much again. This is very interesting, although that's, some of it is a little bit more technical, I would say. I think that, I think we discussed the first recommendation, mark-to-market on derivatives, mark-to-market, sometimes can be pro-cyclical, right? So I think that we need to study the full effect reforms that are going on in the area of derivatives. So I think that we need to also make some assessment on what the results and what the effects of these reforms are. Then on PPP, again, I think it's very interesting, and I think that the experience of countries like Australia, who are one of the world pioneers of PPP, is very helpful in this area for many other countries. So I think that that's important. I found here also this line on crowdfunding. I think that it's very, I don't know, I fully support this. I just have one question to all of you. What kind of barriers now exist against crowdfunding? So why, what the government need to do really to support that? I don't know, think about it, right? Fully for crowdfunding, what should be the action, right? To take away some of the barriers or to establish some G20 crowdfunding platform? Maybe too much. I think that entrepreneurs should be able to establish crowdfunding platforms themselves. Speaking on efficiency, progressive tax for carbon emissions. You know, this is the area where there are always lots of controversies, right? Because on the one hand, we would like the growth to be green. On the other hand, you have all those people complaining that they need growth. Period, right? And this progressive tax for carbon emission, we also need to figure out on which countries it will fall the most, right? And then if it is national tax, right? It's not national, international, it's national. So it falls on existing producers, right? And force them to change. What's exactly the idea? How you see it?
Well, basically, yeah, it is across the board because every nation has its own markets, which are different. But yes, the idea of this, and we do understand that it's a disincentive for carbon emissions. But the idea is that the finances which are raised from this go towards financing further energy efficiency products, and we would like to see an incentive for the private sectors of G20 member nations to further develop energy efficiency, and we believe that there could be a mechanism included in the rate of tax applied to businesses who invest in energy efficiency infrastructure.
Okay, let's think about interesting recommendation. Generally speaking, I think that it's good that Y20 support the idea of green growth, because I think that there is a growing understanding right now that growth, fortunately or unfortunately, can only be greener and greener, right? Having less green growth is probably not feasible, particularly in the medium and long run. So I think that practical recommendations in this area of energy efficiency are important. But again, as with the IMF, that's the area where when you go to practice, actually implementation of recommendations sometimes works not as easy as developing these recommendations. But at the end of the day, I see that here we really have a very young and active crowd, the maybe policymakers of tomorrow. So I think that I hope that some of these recommendations we will be able to implement already sometime soon, but some of them probably that will be your task to implement sometime later when you become politicians yourself. So this is what I would like to wish to all of you, you know, to continue working on these kind of ideas and maybe implement some of them in the future, those which will not be implemented right now. Well, but anyway, thank you very much for this declaration. Today in the afternoon, some of you will meet President Putin, right? And you will be able to actually hand these recommendations to him and have a short discussion with him on these issues as well. So what I can promise to you as a Sherpa is that it will not be the end of the process. Yeah, we will redistribute this among different countries and see what items from this agenda can already influence this year G20 documents. But on some cases, really, I think Australia, who is next year president country, should be able to pick up, because I think that some of these issues are not yet on the agenda, but they're quite interesting, so they can influence next year G20 presidency agenda, not only this year G20 presidency agenda.
Yes, we look forward to working with. We're setting it up at the moment, so yes, it's in the works, but it's not 100% confirmed. We look forward to meeting Russia in Brisbane next year.
Okay, good. So thank you very much. Maybe you have questions from the audience? Yeah.
Just one brief comment regarding that. I'd also like to transmit to you as the current Sherpa our concern, the concern of everyone in the room, that this process may be guaranteed by all member states, that each rotating presidency of the G20 commits itself to hosting a successful Y20, as Mexico did and as Russia is doing today. So we hope for Australia to do so.
Well, you know, success builds on success. So if we have successful summit this year, it increases probability that Australian future presidency will pick up this tradition and implement them. G20 doesn't have any rules, but there are kind of rules, and I think that having a Y20 can become a role in G20 if the leaders will see that the result of this is very important for their work. Thank you.
Yes, so actually, please, thank you so much for Ksenia, thank you so much, my dear colleagues from Troika. Of course, when Russia called for the Junior Rate Summit in St. Petersburg, and regarding the Y20 summit, of course, we follow the Mexican presidency, and we hope that Australia will also follow this path. So, and this year Y20 process was actually of one priority. The global priority of our summit was the total openness of the selection process, of the agenda setting, of the communique drafting, etc. Because, as you know, the Russian G20 presidency gave us a unique chance not to follow the set agenda, but to set it. And this is why, to follow the openness process, we would like to give the floor to you for your questions. So please, we have 2 microphones. This is why, as far as we have 15 minutes for questions, please don't be shy and ask your questions for our Sherpa. Who'll be the first? I have the first one. Since these are G20 nations and 6 invited by the Russian G20 presidency countries. So please, where's the microphone?
Можно?
I think it's here.
No, please.
And all the people, I think that, of course, there are some ideas which are new, like crowdsourcing, right? It's a new idea, so I'm not surprised that it's young people who speak about it, but not some elder people. But otherwise, I think that we have common problems, and we have a common ground among different ages, gender, etc., to talk about the issues. Infrastructure is a very important issue. It's a huge challenge. You know, McKinsey estimated that we'll need to invest something like $1 trillion in infrastructure in the next 10 years or something like this. Right, so it's a big challenge how to improve infrastructure almost everywhere, particularly in developing countries, particularly at the time of the financial crisis, when there are budgetary problems in many countries, particularly in some of the developed countries who used to be the biggest donors. And I think that maybe what kind of going back to specifics of young people, what can young people can bring into this discussion is some innovative ideas about how it can be organized, both project, finance, etc. Then there is also a big demand for kind of regional or cross-country projects, right? How they can be implemented. I think that you need also some innovative ideas. We know what the old solutions were. Some of them are not working. So I think that what the advantage of young people is that you can really think out of the box. And make some non-traditional suggestions. And this is probably what needed in many areas, which we now have on the G20 agenda, not only the energy sustainability and infrastructure sustainability agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So we have the second.
That needs some thinking, because who will be imposing these tax and when, right? It should probably go somehow through the banks, right? Banks who transfer resources to some tax haven have to tax this money, and then you run into the question of like how many borders money cross before going to tax haven, right? You may have some whatever profit originating, say, in Mexico, which later goes on, say, to the United States, and then go to tax haven from somewhere else, right? So I mean, there is still an issue of like redistribution, or it can go from Mexico to Netherlands, for instance, and from Netherlands to tax havens, the typical example of how it goes. And we really need to figure out how and where it should be implemented, and then how it can be redistributed. Because if it's done by one country, you can easily end up in the situation that nobody sends money directly to tax haven from this particular country. They send them somewhere else, but then send to tax haven from that else country, right? So it needs to be some kind of international regimes with clear international rules and information exchange between the countries, and some agreement on sharing of the revenues from taxation, from this kind of taxation as well.